This is an interview that I got to do with the one and the only, the amazing Dan John earlier this year to celebrate 1 year of my podcast being up on iTunes. I got the man, the myth, and the legend himself, the godfather of strength and conditioning training, as many people have noted him to be. If you don't know who Dan John is, you've had your head under a rock. But luckily for you, you can check out the podcast and learn just who Dan is. Dan is credited with inventing the goblet squat, one of my favorite exercises to give all of my clients. And he's not just a musclehead. He's actually a Fulbright scholar and has been published in countless magazines and written numerous books like Never Let Go, Can You Go, Intervention, Mass Made Simple, Before You Go, as well as co-authoring with Pavel Tsatsouline, Easy Strength, and Fat Loss Happens on Monday with Josh Hillis. He's also a religious studies instructor with Columbia College of Missouri. So yeah, he lifts weights, but he's also got a big brain. This is a great interview that I got to do with him. He's an uber nerd. He loves Star Trek, Star Wars, Harry Potter. His dog's name is Sirius. Sirius Black is the black lab. It's a great interview. So enjoy this interview with the one and the only Dan John, celebrating 1 year of SideQuest podcast being online. And head to iTunes right now and subscribe to the podcast so you can listen to more of the amazing guests that I've had, like Dan John, Jen Sinkler, Greg O'Gallagher, Mike Vacanti, and even more. All right, guys, welcome to the 1 year anniversary show of SideQuest podcast. To everyone who has listened for the last year, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. A year ago, I had no idea what this podcast would be or who it would touch, but there are listeners all over the world in a dozen countries that listen to this show every single week. And I am so thankful that you guys have tuned in to listen to some of the best in the fitness industry talk about their stories, their struggles, and give you the tips and tricks that have helped them succeed on their quests for a more awesome them. Today is also a very big day. I have a very, very big guest on the show. He is probably what I would consider the godfather of the strength and conditioning world. He has written numerous books, just to name a couple of them: Never Let Go, Can You Go, Mass Made Simple. That's just to name a few. He is the inventor, or is most often credited with inventing the goblet squat. The one and only Mr. Dan John joins me on the show today in celebration of my 1 year anniversary of putting out some of the best in the fitness industry. A gift to you guys as well I want to give. If you head over to sidequestfitness.com/interview with Dan John, you can listen to the episode there as well. If you're listening there, there's also a button where you can download my first Quest pack. I'm giving out this for free to all of my listeners and to anyone who subscribes to the email and newsletter. The Quest pack is called The Quest of the Traveling Bard. It is challenges that I give you the next time you're on the road. You get a workout challenge, you get a nutrition challenge, and you also get a side quest. So there are things you can do to stay on point with your nutrition and your workouts the next time you're on a trip for business or pleasure. And let me know. In that packet, it will also give you an email address where you can let me know if you succeed on that quest. But I don't want to keep it any longer. I'm so super stoked for this interview. It is amazing. There's a lot of really great nuggets and a lot of great knowledge in this. Dan has a lot of years of experience and has trained so many great people in the industry. And it is a fantastic interview. Listen to it once, listen to it twice, and really dig into what he's saying in a lot of things. It applies to so much more in life. He's hysterical. He's a giant nerd as well. But one of my favorite podcasts that I've ever done. So again, head over to sidequestfitness.com/interview with Dan John to pick up all the show notes and listen to the show as well. Guys, I want to thank you again for listening. And please head to iTunes, hit subscribe, and leave me a review when you do that. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you enjoy the show. All right, guys, welcome into the show. As I mentioned in the intro, I have a fantastic guest for you today, but I don't want to keep his time too long on the show. I want to keep this pretty concise because I know he's a busy man. But I want to thank him, one, for coming on, but I want to welcome to the show the one and the only Mr. Dan John. Dan, welcome to the show.
Hey, well, thanks so much. I'm glad this all worked out. We had a delicious breakfast after a real hard workout, and now I'm on the podcast with you. So it's a perfect day so far.
What was your breakfast this morning, and what was your workout?
Okay. The workout was good. So we did our mobility tonic swing complex warm up, which is just 9 different mobility movements. And today I just did 100 swings with, the 36 kilo kettlebell, which is about, 80 pounds, 79.
Yeah.
And then, after that, we did a really interesting, today was, we're experimenting with some, kind of metabolic workouts, some metabolism, heat you up workouts. So we did 5 minutes of a clean and press with one kettlebell. And so I picked the 20 because I was going to do a test to see if I could get 100 clean and presses. By the way, it's clean and press, clean and press, clean. So it's not just press.
Right.
And I got 85, and I got to tell you, man, when that little dinger went off at the end of the 5 minutes, I was like, oh, okay, this is what bodybuilders are talking about when they say a pump. Oh, I tell you. And then we did a little circuit of the rowing machine, aerodyne, Turkish get-ups, and, parallettes. We do this exercise in the parallette where you go from the up push-up position, and then you swing your legs forward into an L sit, and then you try to swing your legs back to the push-up position. And so those 4 exercises back to back to back, and sadly I had the parallettes last, and so I was gassed. And then we did it. And then in my book, Can You Go, we had this little test, 2-minute plank. So we did 2-minute plank, 1 minute hollow rock, 2-minute plank, 1 minute hollow rock. So I realized at the end of about minute 5 that strength was not my problem. I'm okay. It's a few other factors I got to work on a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, you've had an extensive career. Are there things you're still working on? As you get older, that you sort of mastered the Olympic lifts and front squats. Yeah. You're a man after my own heart. That you love front squats and a lover of Scotch.
Yeah.
But what are you working on now as you get older? What have you found that you're still weak in?
Well, from a coach's standpoint, I think that I'm very good at assessing, and I'm very good at putting a program together for somebody. What I'm not good at is explaining to you why we're putting them on this program. So what I've been working on the last few years is that bridge between assessment and programming. And most programs look, when you work with me anyway, they look pretty similar, but then there's these little differences in there, and the differences are the key part.
Right.
Those little, like last night, for whatever reason, I noticed I needed a lot of pillows. Out of nowhere, I'm hurting at night. Well, so today, more mobility work. So between sets of things, we threw mobility work into everything. So that's just one small example. So getting the person from, okay, this is what you need to do, because that's what the assessment told me, and here's where you are in your life, and here are the things we need to address. So now let's put together a program that deals with what you need to do and those things you need to address. What I just said to you right there is so obvious that you just shrugged your shoulders. But connecting those 2 dots is the problem with most of us. So yes, here's your assessment. Your waistline is too big, and you have some mobility issues. Okay, so what program are you going to do? Well, we're going to have Bobby stretch and do mobility work between sets of rowing and swings. Oh, but that's the same thing you have them on. Well, yeah, but Yes, I know, but he really needs to do this. So I don't know. So that's kind of the gap. And personally, I'm still trying to explore ways of making a workout that gets the metabolism moving and still takes care of everything else. It's easy. I mean, the best metabolism workout I know, I always tell people, is you just join the track team and become a 400-meter runner.
Yeah.
That's trust me, all your dreams will come true. You can eat anything you want because you're going to throw it up. You're going to hate my guts, I guarantee it. But we know how to do that. I guess what I'm trying to get is from the perfect answer is join the track team, become a 400-meter runner. So what we're looking for is the answers that walk towards that a little bit. Like today, Lacey's one of the interns. She said, that she loves what we call, count back workouts. That's when you do this is called the humane burpee. So it's 15 swings, 10 goblet squats, 10 push-ups, 15 swings, 9 goblet squats, 9 push-ups, 15, 8, 8, 15, 7, 7, right, all the way down to 15, 1, 1. She says that she loves those kind of workouts, and of course she does, because adults love that workout. My problem is, why don't I have it in all the time then? And it's like, I know that. I mean, I know that swings and push-ups are probably the two best, back-to-back, the best, metabolic hit you're going to do.
Yeah.
But why don't I have them in there more often? I know it. And so what we're trying to do is kind of start to organize things in a way so that's more like almost like a spreadsheet, a checklist, a click the box. If you're doing this, you do this. So that's what we're trying to work on. And it's really, I think it's funny to think about that everything I'm saying is pretty well-known stuff, but how difficult it is to stay on that fundamental, that basic track and make things better at the simpler levels versus, doing all kinds of other, more beautiful things and, with all the things up on the wall and the, and the tubes going in and out of my heart,
Yeah.
I mean, those stuff all have value, but so that's what we're doing right now. Okay.
Okay. I love that you say that, because I myself, as a new coach in the industry, I get sort of, in awe of the fancy, the sexy stuff. And as I've been reading you, anytime I need a wake up call, I just read your stuff, because I'm like, no, it's just that simple. Why are you trying to make it more complicated? Like it just needs to be gray. It doesn't need to be flashy and bright. Like simple stuff gets work done. So it's interesting, to sort of hear you say that, I still struggle with that in, even with all my years of experience, of trying to find the most simple way we can make it, but it's still complex and fun.
Well, I think back to, classroom teaching. One of the things I'd always do, I'd go over the syllabus and I'd give everybody on the first day a pop quiz that was designed for everyone to do terrible on,
right.
All true and false. I hate to call them trick questions, but it was the basic big questions of the semester or quarter. It was the big issues of the quarter. And with anything that was interesting, anything that didn't, if to be a strength coach, one of the questions, strength is the easiest quality to improve. Mm-hmm. Well, the answer is either true, and in fact, it's really easy, or it's false, because actually flexibility is the easiest quality because it's a neurological trick. But so you do that. So you'd say, and see how you built that up? So that'll be a series of lectures in a month or so. But then the next class, I used to call it the warp speed overview. And no matter what the class was about, didn't matter whether it was a scripture class, a modern America class, an economics class, I would give 2 days to go over the whole sweep of things we're going to learn that semester. And people would say, well, why do you do that? It's like, well, because people know a lot of this stuff. They just needed to put it in a framework. And once you build that base, that framework, you tell the whole history of the Old Testament in a 1 or 2 day lecture, the whole thing, start to finish. And then you keep building on that for the rest of the session. You start from the War of 1898, and you build the Spanish-American War. And you build from the Spanish-American War all the way through, well, let's see, now modern America probably gets you certainly to 9/11, perhaps certainly to 9/11, ideally. And you would build that framework the very first day or two. You follow?
Yeah.
And so when I look at coaching in track and field, like, I always like to break things down into, honestly, rarely more than 3 things each event, but it always ends up being more. And then you try to use it, like in the discus. That's the most logical for me because I know it so well. But we say stretch 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3 is your footwork. And then from there, we build on it with different phrases and images like gait and whirl, and just all these little words that build on stretch 1, 2, 3. But my athletes who've been with me 8 years will do stretch 1, 2, 3 drills with someone who's there for the first day.
Yeah.
But I think that you have to have this underlying structure to everything. Very often I explain the importance of knowing geometry to be a good strength coach. Those are the givens. Your genetics is a given, your eye color is a given, your height is basically a given. And then from there is the goal set, and that's the to prove side. But if you're not real solid with your fundamentals of geography, it's real hard. And what happens is you go online, you press a button, and a new toy is out, and there you are. I saw it the other day at a website where guys are talking about using club bells, maces, and all these sledgehammers. And we have one in our gym, and we, certainly I could take a club bell class, but is it just one more thing? Do we already have a tool here in place that's maybe not as good, but it's already being used? Because once you add something in, you've got to take something out.
Right.
I think,
No, I know the site you're referencing. I'm still waiting for them to come out with broadswords. Can we go back and get some like medieval broadsword training in? I would be down for that.
Well, I mean, gymnastics, the sport of gymnastics is based on military training for officers.
Yeah.
Every one of those events is either escape, evasion, or horseback fighting. Mm-hmm. And, well, why don't we just bring horses back into our training?
That's a way to get a sore set of glutes.
Yeah. So now I have to go get myself a barn and hay, and now I'm going to need some chickens. And but that's what happens. You take what's a good idea. James Clear just did an article, his blog post this morning. I think it's called DDism or something like that. It's where you buy yourself a new car and all of a sudden realize your garage is dirty. So you hire someone to completely redo your garage. But once your garage is redone, you realize that your house needs painting. And while you're painting, you might as well put in new windows. New windows need new covers, new shades. And well, now the new shades look so good. I need new carpet, new woodwork, and now I need new furniture. That's what happens very often, I think, in our industry. Is that you take a very good idea, like we're going to start using kettlebells, and I got great respect for kettlebell juggling, but pretty soon your guys are more worried about juggling than they are swings, goblet squats, and Turkish get-ups.
Right.
And my job, I think, is to constantly, I hate to say it, but rein people back in.
I think that's a good analogy. And you, as I said, before, you definitely. Your work brings me back in because I'm like, no, it's simple. Just keep it simple. Like, that's all you need. It doesn't need to be crazy stuff. And you've seen that, and you mentioned that in a lot of your books. That look, we had this before in like the '80s, where you had this, in the '90s, or you had this. Like, I've seen everything. Nothing's new. We're just rehashing it.
Yeah.
But I want to talk a little bit about strength training because you are a master of strength training. And you mentioned sort of a trick question in your true false that strength is the easiest to improve.
Yeah.
But in your books you mention a lot that strength is key, and I think a lot of us who are coaches and work in weights and have had success know that the stronger you get, the easier it is to lose body fat. The easier it is to sort of have a weekend where you don't have to worry so much about what you eat. And it's easier. You can move easier, you breathe easier, you just feel better.
Yeah.
But our country is sort of in a moment where we have, as the doctors and media like to call it, an obesity crisis.
Right.
A lot of people are really intimidated by weights or lifting weights. So if strength is key, in physical fitness and weight loss, how do you help people who are afraid of it to see its benefits?
Well, see, yeah, I honestly, I wish Harry Potter was here, because honestly, I think, what was that one curse where you make the person do what they want to do? I know that for most my friend Josh Hills teaches this. He, if you can get a fat loss client stronger, then everything else seems to happen on its own.
Yeah.
We know that lean body mass burns more calories, and we know the fastest route is the lifting weights. That's why with the system I use, generally, this sounds, but people who come in for fat loss for some reason want to be boot camped or punished or sweaty messes. And so what you need to do is put into the system, like that's why I have this rule that you only use a cardiovascular machine for 2 minutes, around 2 minutes, like a 500-meter row or a 2-minute aerodyne. That's what we do here.
Yeah.
Or a loaded carry for doesn't matter, 2 minutes. And the reason we're trying to do that is that 2 minutes will get people's breathing hard and sweaty so that we can focus on what they actually really need, which might be deadlifts, chins, dips.
Right.
Because the deadlifts, chins, and dips will build up some body mass, some lean body tissue, make you work with your own body weight. Long term, short term, that's going to be the thing that really gets body composition changes. So I think you have to, well, it's like, okay, with men. Most men need mobility and flexibility work. Oddly, most women need strength training. Most men will lift weights all day. Most women will stretch all day.
Yeah.
We've got to reverse that. So when I'm working with a man who needs mobility, so we'll do a stretch for the pecs and the biceps between sets of overhead pressing so their deltoids and triceps get stronger. So you mix hypertrophy with mobility, and that makes men happy. And then on the women's side, you mix sweaty fat loss things with strength work, and that makes them happy. So that's kind of the answer that I've come up with. Is of course, I base my whole training concept on you give the client what they need, not what they want.
Right.
Okay. Having said that, by also giving them what they want between sets of what they need, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
I never program curls or bench press for even my throwers because I know they're going to. So I program in, rack deadlifts, clean grip snatches, whip snatches, and then I tell them whatever else you want to do. And of course, that's the bench and curl.
Right.
And then the next workout, we program in this and whatever else you want to do. And that's, bench press and curl. So it's a win-win for me, By the way, I say a lot in these Skype interviews.
It's fun.
I think it's because I'm in an empty room. My dog is even here today to hang out with me and bother me. He's found a better place to hide in the house.
What kind of dog do you have?
I have here he is right here. I have a beautiful pound puppy named Sirius Black, who was on death row at the doghouse, and he's probably a black lab, probably mostly black lab, maybe a little bit of pointer, and he's just as loyal and kind a dog as I know. And except he does beg. We're working on that. We're working on.
It's all right. I have a Jack Russell, so he's always begging for attention.
Yeah, my arm is now being taken by my dog. I think I say because I'm talking to an empty room and I'm just feeding for any kind of feedback,
Right.
So I'll talk to my dog. So Sirius, how was your workout today? Yes, good. When I started focusing early in my career on what's most important, the Pareto 80-20 rule, I've always really forced myself to focus on the cliches now, the big rocks. For throwers, for discus throwers, it's the squat snatch, maybe the front squat, and discus throwing. So if I'm taking care of those, everything else will take care of itself. You'll notice I didn't say hill running, sprinting, overhead shot put throws, medicine. They're all valuable, but as long as you're snatching, squatting, and throwing the discus a lot, we've taken care of the big stuff. And I think with your male clients who need mobility work, if you reward them with one-arm presses and maybe pull-ups and then flexibility work in between, it's a win-win. With your women, get them sweaty on that Aerodyne, have them do some deadlifts, get them sweaty on the row, have them do some presses. I think it's a win-win. I
agree with that. I have been thinking about that a lot more in my own programming with clients, and finding little ways to sneak in, because I neglected mobility for a very, very long time. I was just like, I'm going to go in and lift really heavy and not stretch and it came back to bite me in the butt. So I have been focusing a lot more every day on mobility and spending a lot of time doing that, even in between sets. And I found that with my clients that helps as well. So you mentioned earlier you have interns. How many interns do you have with you now?
Well, there's 2 universities here in the state, 3 now, check that have programs in the field like exercise science and physical education, and there's another one. Sorry for not remembering.
No worries.
And so they send them. It's funny because one, of course, is where I went to school, Utah State, and that's nice because the track coach, Greg Gensel, came down the other day and we're talking about one of his athletes who interned with me this summer. The University of Utah, which is very close. I don't think I haven't had a Utah intern it's got to be 3 straight years. Though in my past, I'd probably have to say as many as, probably close, sneaking to 20. I'm leaving Thursday for an extended road trip where I'm going to go to Ireland to the wedding of one of my interns, which is kind of exciting, to be honest.
Nice.
And then there's this little school down the south of here. They call themselves a university, but that's, I think, a joke. Brigham something or other or something. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe, yeah. They send up people, which is hilarious to me. So I think about 6 months ago, I think there were 7 of them. And it's funny because when you don't really you'll never clean bathrooms with me but we work out, and then I have you read books, and then I expect you to do things like, I want you to try to come up with a few ideas, fix a few things. If you're handy with things, here's a problem we're seeing. Can you make this work? Can you make this tool work in this situation? Sean Fulton, this great guy from Illinois, getting his master's at BYU. He's like a genius with this kind of thing. So that's what I want. I want them to become. My goal with an intern is to become a problem solver, because that's really the job of coaches, is the problem solving.
Yeah.
It really is geometry. It's constantly geometry. It's when people ask me what are good courses to take for coaching, I never tell them to take a coaching class. I always tell them to take basic economics, because coaching is so much cost to benefit analysis. You're constantly cost to benefit analysis. And then the other side would be make sure you have some background in geometry so you can logically walk through the problems that will come up. And there's always problems. I mean, you could be I've coached in terrible facilities with virtually no field, no ring to throw in, and produced 9 straight state champions in the discus without a place to throw. Well, it's because it was a delightful problem to solve. Yeah. And, we got to the point that, I would raise money throughout the year to send the kids to discus camp with me for 2 weeks, sometimes 3. We set up different times a year. Like during football season, the throwers would still just pop by like once a week, and we talk about football and how proud I am, and here's some. It was marvelous, and I think that's how you become a good coach. I've also had phenomenal facilities, but because I didn't have the support of the administration or this, that, it became so. You're in this, on paper, the finest facility in the world, but because of people, it becomes really difficult to coach there. Mm-hmm. 1 or 2 small things change on the people side, and all of a sudden it becomes the best job you've ever had in your life. Yeah. So it's problem solving, constantly problem solving.
I love that you mentioned economics and geometry and that coaching is problem solving. I have a degree in theater, which as you were talking about that, I was like, that's sort of what you're doing as an actor as well. Like when you create a character, you're sort of solving the problem of what does this character want. So I taught my wife how to do the get back up exercise. She hated me, by the way. So I'm probably going to be in the doghouse for a couple of days for that. But I told her, I was like, this would be a great physical warm-up for your acting class, because it sort of makes them start thinking, okay, if my character has this objective and they have something in their way, well, how do they get by it? But how do you apply that from getting off the floor, with your hand on your knee? Plus it gives you a chance to make them sweat and, take up some teaching time.
Well, there's that one where the hands are in the back pockets or behind the neck, and what you're trying to get the person to do really is think through the problem. Right. So I appreciate that's great. From what I've seen, theater might be one of the best. So Jeff Hemingway, my brother-in-law, out at Mark Fisher Fitness. Well, Mark Fisher. Oh yeah. You go to Mark Fisher. You go to MFF, and it's just everyone's theater, theater and Broadway musical, and you watch the enthusiasm of the coaching and of the trainers. It's like, if I get my football players, if I get my throwers to approach fitness this way, I think we'd be a lot better. So maybe, and the truth is, man, that when you coach, you get a degree in acting. It's one time my daughter was in school. I taught both my daughters, and someone was at the cafeteria and said, "God, your dad was so mad today," and Lindsay just said, "No, he wasn't." "Oh yeah, his face got red and he screamed." He goes, "Yeah, he was faking that." And there's a funny story. There's a good story about the whole thing. She goes, "I've seen my dad mad, and he doesn't turn red." "Oh, what does he get?" And she told the story about, basically I'll chase you with a sword and try to kill you is what happens. But if I'm trying to fake anger with like a high school football player, I put on the guise of angry high school football coach. Yeah. It doesn't really truly mean that I was angry. You did something stupid and dangerous, and I had to correct you any way I could possibly do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got a few more questions here. I've got some fun ones. But the first thing I got to know, Dan, because I've watched you throw the caber on the internet. I'm a huge fan of the Highland Games. My senior project in high school was filming a documentary, on the Highland Games, sort of like where they came from and my family history with that. So I got to ask, what clan is your tartan?
Oh, it's Royal Stewart. Yeah.
Oh.
Nice. Yeah, my mother is from Northern Ireland. In fact, the county that Belfast is in. And her family, funny, if you just go north of Belfast, you can't throw a stick without hitting a McCloskey. And that's where my family's from. And the McCloskeys, I guess, the family motto is daggers to our enemies. And it just, if you know my family, it fits absolutely perfectly. And the McCloskeys wear the Royal Stewart tartan. Though, frankly, I believe genealogy, kind of like I believe in Frosty the Snowman. I don't believe in it. Yeah, I'm not a big believer in genealogy. Okay. You'll notice, oh God, no. No, there's never any bastards in it. I've never seen a family tree with a bastard in it. I've never seen a family tree.
They exist, they just don't list them.
Yeah, I've never seen a family tree with that uncle that might have been a brother. Family trees always have too many twigs and branches. When I was in college, a professor made a great point about family trees. For your family tree to be perfect, I can't remember the exact number, but okay, it's you, and you have 2 parents, you have 4 grandparents, right? You have 8, 16, 32, 64. Yeah, he did the math for us one day on the board, and there needed to be like 8 billion people on the planet Earth for your family tree to be perfect in the year 1000. It was just this huge number.
Yeah. And
so like the little girl next to me went, wait, what does that mean? There's your family tree has a lot more straight lines than branches, is what it means.
That is true. If you actually do a lot of research into your own family history, it sometimes does get a little like, oh wait, what? Especially when you come from small towns.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can only imagine from a small island just how they were more. The clans were a lot more together than they were separate.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. So a couple fun questions before we wrap up. And
wait, wrap up.
Well, no, I mean, no. John, Dan, what? I have plenty of fun questions. Trust me.
Oh, okay. All right.
I know from Steven, Coach Steve-O, that you are a big nerd as well. I mean, your dog is named Sirius Black, and he told me that you used to drink Scotch and watch Star Trek: The New Generation together. So I wanted to ask.
That's absolutely true. Yes.
Kirk versus Picard.
Picard. No, don't forget. I grew up with the original series. I watched. It was tough because originally I think it was on Friday night or Tuesday night, and then they changed it to Friday night.
Yeah.
But now Kirk in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, which is by far the best he ever did. There's your contender. But week in, week out, it's got to be Captain Picard, and mostly because of. I say quiet dignity, but the idea that with Kirk sometimes he was spending too much time making out and punching people. Whereas, Picard was kind of a little bit more mission focused.
Yeah. I think I would agree. And I mean, I'm more of a Star Wars guy than a Star Trek guy.
Oh, so am I. Yeah, I was in front row in a Greg Winslow's Audi Fox. We took out lawn chairs. We watched Star Wars the first time it came out, twice in a row, and I said, I'm glad we stayed twice because there's no way we'll ever see that show again. Because this is before videos and DVDs. Yeah. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny?
It's crazy to think that now you can just get it wherever you want it, on your phone, on a DVD, take it with you. Are you excited for the new sort of film that's coming out in December, or are you just kind of like, meh, it is what it is?
I can't tell you how disappointed I was in the Phantom Menace and those other films. Right? That guy Jar Jar Binks.
Oh yeah, awful.
So and the truth is, I didn't like the third one with the Ewoks. The Return of the Jedi was such a marvelous movie. So the first one, whatever you want to call it, A New Hope, I guess what we call it now, was right out of Joseph Campbell's. I mean, it was Batman, it was Harry Potter, it was Superman, Moses, Jesus. I mean, every superhero ever. Yeah. They nailed it. And then 2 was The Empire Strikes Back, was that wonderful idea of mentor and how the mentor comes to you. And then 3's got toys you'd buy at a store.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so there.
Sadly, because I was an 80s kid born in like 86, the first thing I ever knew of Star Wars was the Ewoks, because my parents were like, oh, they're like teddy bears. We'll put him in front of the TV and he can watch these teddy bears. And I didn't realize until I saw Return of the Jedi when I was maybe like 7 that, they were one and the same.
Well, and the other thing too, and I hate to be, I think they stomped on something I loved. That's why.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's fine. Listen, this is old man yelling at clouds for being in the sky. You cloud. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, I do have to say there's still one question I want answered, and he ruined this entire line in Return of the Jedi by having Padme die. Is how can Leia know her true mother if her true mother died when she was a newborn? You never answer that. No one ever answers that. I just want that one question answered. But all right, we'll go on to the next fun question. Where would you go in a time machine?
Oh. Am I 58 or do I get to regress? I don't know. That's a tough one. I tell you one thing, we could get a lot of questions answered if I could hang around Jesus of Nazareth a while. And of course, if there are time machines, that would have been me in the desert with him. He'd have called me Satan and get away. Really, though, if I go back in my life, I wouldn't mind. It's funny, I knew it. My senior year in college, I knew that this was a pretty great time. I wouldn't mind another day or two back in '79 throwing the discus far and hanging out. I mean, just hanging out and having a great time. My daughter just graduated from college, and she's in that tough time right after. It was, for me, I worked in a cheese factory. It's that tough time when you're riding high in April, shot down in May, Yeah. You had this great college experience, and the next day you're at a 9 to 5 job, or in my case, 10 o'clock to 6:30 a.m. job. So yeah, time machine questions are always tough with me. Yeah, but go ahead, next one.
No, I like that answer. I'm glad that I think many people would be like, oh, I hated high school, but it's good to hear that at least someone enjoyed their senior year. I think too many of us
college. Senior year of college.
Oh, college. Oh, okay. Well, even in college, I'll be honest. Those last couple of months, you're just like, oh, I want this to be over. And about 6 months later, you're like, I miss everyone. I wish college was back. All right, so you are a man after my own heart, or I guess I should say I'm a man after your own heart, in that I love front squats, and I also love good Scotch. So what is your go-to Scotch for under $100?
Oh, well, you don't have to spend a lot on Scotch. We do this thing at our house. I talk about it in my workshops. It's actually called, in theology, phenomenology, where we do blind taste testings of Scotches and bourbons. And it's interesting because the bourbons that win are Jack Daniels and Maker's Mark. The expensive ones don't do well in blind taste testing. In the Pinot Noirs, it is remarkable. One thing, it's funny because a very fine Pinot Noir like David Bruce does stand out. That's about a $39 bottle of wine, $49.
Yeah.
But other Pinot Noirs are like there's one we drink it called Cashmere. It's outstanding. In Scotch, here's the funny thing. So one time we did the Johnny Walker family. So it was red, black, double black, green, platinum that just come out.
Yeah.
Gold, blue, And we didn't do the spice one because that one was too off. Red's terrible, of course.
Yeah.
But gold always beats blue, always. But what's funny that most of us pick Johnny Walker Black, the simple one, as the winner. And then from there, if I'm just sitting around enjoying good Scotch, my favorite's always been Glenfiddich. But that's, for me, I'm not a big fan of the peaty, dirty ones. I used to kind of like it. Then you wake up one day and you don't like peaty Scotches, and I've been told that I'll like them again as I age because my taste buds will be more and more kind of defeated.
True. Yeah. I haven't really found which ones I enjoy the most. I kind of like the more peaty ones, I guess, because that's sort of what I was introduced on.
Sure.
But I think you're right. Johnny Walker Black is always a good go-to.
Yeah.
And of course, Glenfiddich is fantastic. So going back into a little more of the more business serious questions, if you will. You mentioned your interns and how many you work with and how many over the years you've worked with, but have you learned something from an intern that's benefited you or your coaching or teaching?
Oh, I mean, that's a given. But, just go something as simple as Mark Fisher Fitness. We did that hardstyle kettlebell cert in Missouri. Steph Shelton hosted. And at the end there, Mark and I were just sitting on the ground, and he was telling me about, and it depends on how you say it, niche or niche, about his niche. And I went away realizing for the rest of my career that if you don't understand who you are and what your niche is, get out. I've got one, Patrick, who he's an offensive coordinator at a local high school now. And his ability to do if-then scenarios really inspired me on this next book. Mike Brown, of course, Mike Warren Brown, he's been with me now, 6 years? His ability to look at a program and just break it down into the mathematical basics. And he's always correct me. No, that's not what it does. It's this, this, and this. And here's the important thing, and this is that. Of course, Mark Halpern with the arrow that we use in nutrition.
Yeah.
That comes, his arrow is from Mark. Oh, gosh, I could be here all day. Adrian Craddock, whose wedding we're going out to. I learned, I've never had someone jump in more. And he's the person who kind of re-inspired me to always sit in the front row and always raise my hand I always volunteer at workshops because that's who learns the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just the start. Everybody would get some kind of nod,
So one of the keys you mentioned, in your book, along with, eating more colorful vegetables, lean proteins, and lifting heavy weights, is seeking mastery.
Yeah.
Is there something you are still seeking to master? I mean, obviously you haven't mastered everything. My grandfather used to say, once I feel like I mastered everything, it's probably the day I die.
Well, gardening would be one start. I practice on the tin flute a lot, and I'm horrific. I think I have very interesting taste in music and absolutely no musical talent. None. It's fascinating to me. I have no retention for musical skills. So that would be an area. So I continue to practice every day, and I seem to get worse every day I practice. So there's an area of life. Of course, in the area of sports, my own skill set as an athlete, I was very impressed. I just did a Highland Games, and my ability now to be able to make my arousal control go up and down so fast now makes me very happy, because that was an issue with me much of my career. I was sometimes too excited, sometimes too lethargic, but I was amazed how I could dial it up and down by the event and what was needed in that event. So that's something I was kind of happy with. I think arousal control is the master switch of performance. And, of course, the fact that I'm 58 probably isn't, if I was 28 and saying this, we'd be all so happy for me. I'm going to probably start throwing the discus seriously again in a year or so. There's coming out of the back of the ring. It's funny because when you stop doing something that you love for a while, these wonderful insights pound in your head. Whoosh,
Yeah.
Like it's like you can almost feel like all the garbage got blown out. I'm getting rolfed. I'm doing that 10-part rolfing, and they talk about what they're looking for between the muscles is leaves in the gutters. And I think that off seasons and stuff like time away from your event cleans the leaves out of the gutters, and all of a sudden it gets so much simpler than it used to be.
I think that's a very interesting point, because I think a lot of us sometimes are so focused. We don't want to take the time off. Taking time off or time away, almost feels like we're not working hard enough. Taking those breaks, is important.
Right.
Whether you write, whether you train, whether you're weight training, whether you're, creating videos or writing programs or coaching, sometimes you just got to sort of take you got to fast a little bit, you got to take some time off and allow your brain to sort of come back down and refocus. And that's something I struggle with.
Exactly.
Because, with trying to better myself as a coach and write more and do all of that stuff, I have that work ethic my dad instilled in me and my grandfather instilled in me, and I didn't see my grandfather stop until the doctor was like, you have 2 months to live. And then he pretty much kind of stopped. But even then, he was on the go all the time. So I mentioned in the intro that you were a Fulbright scholar.
Oh, yeah.
Which is impressive. There's a lot of, I looked on Wikipedia, by the way, and you're not listed among the people in there. So I'm gonna have to go in there and add you in. But in there you have people like Sylvia Plath. Why am I forgetting his name? The guy from Third Rock from the Sun, John Lithgow.
Really?
Yeah, John Lithgow was a Fulbright, as well as some others, and people who later became musicians and authors or dignitaries.
Well, I mean, I can see why. I'm not John Lithgow. I understand that.
But what spurred that desire to go and travel and learn internationally?
Well, almost every story in my life has the phrase, I had a good mentor, a guy named Bob Staub, and it's a long time ago now, but I was studying up so I already had a master's degree, and I was at the University of Utah. I could tell I had a hole in my education, and the hole was Middle East studies. So I took like a class or two of Middle East studies. Then he said, you're a good student. Why don't you take Turkish? I need to fill out my class. So halfway through the year, so I was a whole semester behind my classmates. So I had to catch up a semester of another language, and I did, and they were impressed. And this program came up, and I applied, and the next thing you know, there I was in Egypt, and there I was in Lebanon and Israel. One funny little story. So I was also a football coach at the time, and this is back when the USFL was playing, and we ran the run and shoot offense, and the Houston Gamblers were playing the Denver Gold. Both teams ran the run and shoot. And, boy, this is going to be Jim Kelly, Herschel Walker, Doug Flutie. it was a big game. So we get there. The game's delayed because of lightning. So we finally get to the airport, get on our flight, get off our flight, delayed, of course, get there, and then I realize that it's Sunday night, and tomorrow morning at 4 a.m., I have to go through security to fly to the Middle East. So I had to clean up from a road trip, pack for, the Middle East. And it's funny because when I got there, I realized I had packed 4 ties. I had 4 ties. I wore them. I mean, I wore them maybe a couple times, but I had 4 ties. It was just funny how poorly I packed for the trip. And somewhere in my archives, I've got this little list that I wrote to myself of what you really need when you travel. And it's funny because at the time, I wrote something like a canteen, because this was before water bottles.
Right.
So I didn't have a canteen. So, yeah, make sure you bring a canteen. It's just funny to think about it now,
What was one of the best experiences you had, traveling in Egypt and Lebanon and Israel and Turkey? I mean, you were there for a while studying, correct?
Yeah. Well, there's about 1 billion of them, but one of my favorite things is we were okay. Upper Egypt is the south. Okay, Upper Egypt's the south,
right?
But because of the direction of the Nile, and I'm sitting there one night. And I'm with the guys, the Finnish captain from NATO and I were sitting at the bar, just drinking beer and talking in English. A Finnish guy and an American in Egypt drinking beer. And it was just like one of those odd things. The next day, I was hanging out with his whole group because, I was kind of cool. And so here I am with, NATO peacekeepers. That was amazing. I spent some time one day in the Suez hunting clams with these little local kids. And they were showing me and there was one that's really poisonous. And I picked it up and they freaked out when its foot and spike started coming out. They freaked out. And that was just delightful. In Israel, we had a real fun day where there's this Roman. So the Romans diverted a river and made a series of swimming pools out of it.
Yeah. And
they still work.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was just fun. I'm a bit of a nuisance, but I had a wonderful time. I really did. Sorry, my dog is now barking at my mailman.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
So this will get ugly for a few seconds.
He's not a fan of the mailman, eh?
They love each other. Hang on, I've got to go get some. Can you hang tight?
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Hey, Pup, you gonna go back in?
Hey, Sirius, bud. Can you still hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
So at my 40-year reunion, one of the guys sent, as a thank you, sent me a quilt. A quilt. It was supposed to be here 2 weeks ago.
Where was it being shipped from?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, the postal service.
Yes. So, so what other questions do you have for me?
Just a couple more, and they're sort of on the serious side, but then I'll end with a fun one, for the show. So, what do you worry about? Do you worry about anything, and why do you worry about it?
Worry?
I mean, like, do you have things that you worry about for your children, for your interns, for life as you continue, or your what you leave behind as a legacy?
Oh, I worry about my legacy quite a bit, and that's why my wife and I try to be very generous to all kinds of causes. We just made a fairly good-sized donation. There's a school that really struggles here in Utah. It's a public school, and it's totally underfunded, which makes you kind of wonder why you make a sentence like that, an underfunded public school.
Yeah.
And the kids, most of the school population has, free lunch and stuff like that. And they had no computers, and these kids grow up without any computers. So my wife and I did kind of a split the pot bingo with the faculty and staff and parents, and then we donated half we donate half. So that was a good thing. I mean, and then we donate to, we're trying to set up a scholarship at Utah State. We have a scholarship, an endowment at a school. Now we want to set up a scholarship. So that's kind of, but worries, it's funny the things I worry about. I worry about, my wife bought me a mulcher, and I can't put it together because it has 10,000 screws. And I'm thinking about just throwing it away and buying another one. But I worry about how my wife will feel about that more than I worry about almost everything else.
Okay, good. You worry about what your wife will feel about things. All right, someone else. I'm sure most of us men do that.
Yeah.
My worry. What will my wife think if I do this? All right. So just a couple more. So last fun one. If you could be an animal on a carousel, what animal would you be and why?
I'd be a unicorn, in honor of Mark Fisher Fitness.
All right, I like it. All right, so I know you are a fan of history, and I know you mentioned earlier, the time machine question is always hard for you. So this one might be hard as well. But I stole it from Tim Ferriss, and I enjoy this question and hearing how people answer. But if you could have dinner with one person from history, who would it be?
Oh, that's a question I didn't think you'd say. I got to tell you, and this isn't because he was president, but I would like to have with Abraham Lincoln, and only because I always found his way with words, his ability to put the Gettysburg Address, I still consider one of the finest pieces of prose poetry ever written. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to spend some time. He's a self-educated man, and I'd like to spend some time with him and just find out how he turned a phrase. And the other thing too, how do you remain balanced when the whole world is ripping apart underneath you? I mean, the guy was a stud. I mean, the guy was an absolute stud.
Yeah. And what do you what did you learn? What did you read? To educate yourself.
Right.
To becoming a lawyer and moving all the way up to president. I mean, it would be. I don't think anyone in the media would ever portray someone who taught themselves, self-taught everything, to them, learned everything on their own. It probably wouldn't come across very well in the media that they would want to paint him as as dumb or stupid. Well, he didn't have the education. He just read this stuff online. But essentially that's what Lincoln did. Yeah, he's always been a very interesting person in history because people hated him, and it was like, well, okay.
Oh, true. Well, what's funny is that every so often the Republican Party will raise up Lincoln. I guarantee the Republicans who we have now, for what he stood for, they'd be cutting his throat, many of them. Yeah. I'm thinking of one particular local politician who's kind of forced his ass. That's actually a very good question. That's how do you remain united when everybody is divisive? How do you do that?
And I think that's something that I don't usually talk this stuff. I avoid politics on Facebook or in person just because it gets heated and most people only hear their side, and even then you raise a question and all of a sudden it starts a storm of crazy. But I think that's something politicians today and people in the world haven't really figured out is how do you maintain some sort of. What do you do? Because it feels like the same kind of thing. You've got two sides constantly fighting, but no one's able to,
Yeah. Well, it's funny because there was these great two theologians who absolutely disagree with each other on every single thing. And I don't remember their names. But they were in the same community. They shared the same chores and the same meals every night. In their arguments on paper, I wouldn't say vicious with each other, but obviously charged opposites.
Right.
But in every other aspect of their life, they were together. And I think we have forgotten that. How do you stay united but the forces of division? If you don't mind me going a little bit off,
you're fine. Go ahead.
I've always considered evil that which divides all my whole life. I don't know where I got this from, but it's always been universally true. You know, day and night, black and white, you know, male, female. And we're constantly trying, it's funny, male and female, constantly trying to unite. That's a bit of a, but it's true. And, you know, and when you go through, when you study philosophy and theology, you know, it's very easy to tear down. Very, very easy. It's the simplest thing in the world. But to build something is so much more elegant and beautiful. But right now, in the last few years, when you ask me about what I worry about, is that the forces of evil, the forces of division are winning. They've been winning for a while. When you listen to the speeches of a John F. Kennedy and this idea of building, Lyndon Johnson building, hell, even somebody like Richard Nixon, he was so much more about getting together and building. And it just seems like we've thrown this all out. Yeah. We've thrown this all out. I didn't mean anything negative about Nixon, you know, and, you know, but, you know, everyone always thinks of him as kind of a, you know, Watergate and all that other stuff, and the buggings and stuff. But it's interesting. And I don't know what to tell you, but this is way off the topic of strength training. Yeah.
No, you know, to be honest, Dan, I think it applies. I think there's a lot of division even in, you know, the fitness industry. You see people, you know, arguing over this point or that point, and you see it, you know, with scientific journals where, you know, people are trying to come together and create something to really help people. But, you know, once you sort of get in there, sometimes you see everyone arguing and dividing themselves, and it's just sort of like, we have one goal in like helping people live better lives, and we're arguing over whose opinion is correct. Like, we can disagree, but we should keep the eye on the goal, which is to help people, to better their lives, to help them, you know, live longer, happier, you know, more fulfilled lives. And we're arguing over a blog post. Like, come on.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Yeah.
So, well, Dan, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show.
Sure, absolutely.
I have enjoyed having you on. I enjoy reading all your work. And anytime I need a shot of truth or a shot of simplicity, I just open one of your books. But I want to thank you for coming on the show. If people want to find you online, where can they find you online?
Well, danjohn.net or on Facebook, Dan John Strength Coach. Make sure you go to Dan John Strength Coach. Daniel John is me, but you can't friend me because I'm over the limit or something. And Dan John is a fan site someone set up that doesn't have. I can't clean it up. I can't do anything with it. So don't go there if you can help it. Okay.
All right. Well, Dan, thank you for coming on, guys. Head over to Dan's site. I'll have all the links in the show notes as well for his books, as well as everything else that was mentioned in the show. But his books, if you're a strength coach or a fitness enthusiast, they are fantastic, and you should definitely pick them up. So, Dan, thank you for coming on.
Oh, absolutely. Appreciate it. Okay.
All righty.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.